Okay then, as promised, it is time for power rankings. Now, we did this a little while ago, just before the transfer window sort of petered out slightly, and that's kind of what it's done now. We've had the moves from London, we've had Paris, they've now got entire rosters. We're still waiting on a main support for Boston Uprising, but apart from that, the league is pretty much done. We know most of our teams now going into 2021. It's now January. We're nearly in mid-January now. So this is where teams are going to start settling down, and they're just going to start scrimming, and they're going to start playing matches and stuff like that. There is a next cup coming up for some of the teams. I believe Shanghai, Guangzhou, Seoul, and Dallas. Now, although that is what you would assume an all APAC tournament, it isn't, because Dallas apparently aren't competing in APAC. They're going to compete in NA, which is interesting. I thought Dallas might move to APAC. They haven't. They've done their fans a favour, because believe me, that wouldn't be healthy to watch for Dallas fans. I'm sure at the time it would be in the APAC region, unlike Philadelphia Fusion, who have moved over to the APAC region. So there's a lot going on. We know a little bit more about the league now. We're expecting teams like London to move back to NA. It would be very surprising if London stayed in APAC, and to be quite honest, it wouldn't be very good for them, because I think they get pummeled. But we're going to make some power rankings. Now, what I want to say before we get into this is my opinion in terms of the power of the teams, not necessarily where they're going to finish. This is because of the split in regions. When you have the split in regions, some teams get a higher placing in the overall standings because of being in a certain region. We saw that last year, and therefore I don't think it can properly demonstrate the power of each team compared to each team as it would be in a normal all-20 tournament, all-20 league format. So that's why I'm kind of doing it in this way. At some point down the line, I may do an individual power ranking for each region. If you want to see that, leave a like, leave a comment, whatever you want to do, and subscribe, hit the bell, make sure, because I will probably end up doing that at some point anyway, because we will do power rankings before the season starts, after our 20-team previews. So let's get into this then. This is where I think all these teams are at this point, all 20 teams in the league, no region separation. So, bottom 5. First of all, bottom of the league, 20th place, Vancouver. Vancouver, what do we say about Vancouver? I thought they might improve slightly instead. I really don't think they have. Their DPS line is okay. Dalton, Linksa, Teru, I think they'll be fine. When I look at their tank line, FRD and Shredlock, I don't think it's great. I think it's one of the weakest tank lines in the league. And then when I look at Rules from Fire, I'm like, no. I'm just no. It doesn't seem like a team that's going to click to me. It really doesn't seem like a team that's going to work. I don't think it's got the quality to compete with a lot of the other teams in the league, including some of the bottom tier teams. So that's why I'm putting Vancouver as bottom of the league. I think Vancouver may come a little bit of a new Boston in some respects, where they just tend to find a little gem every now and then, like they did with Shockwave, and sell them on for a nice profit. That can be maybe what happens with Vancouver, because this is not a great looking roster, not gonna lie. And I think that might be what they're trying to do with Teru. Pick a little gem up and then sell him on next season because he's done so well. Anyway, who have I got just above Vancouver? Now, sorry guys, I'm going to tilt you at this. It's Houston. Now, the reason I've put Houston there, I like Houston's DPS line. Don't get me wrong. Happy, Hydration, Dante, KSF. I think that is a good DPS line. And I think it will carry them to some wins. I really, really do. I think Houston have the potential to be higher than this. Their tank line, it was mediocre in Korea, so that's not great. And then you've got Crimzo and Juby. Juby, he's completely unproven at this level. Even at contenders level, Juby is unproven. He's a college graduate, basically, and he's gone straight to the Overwatch League. And I'm sorry, he's going to have to be another Jonak. If you still want to do anything, he's going to have to be another Jonak. And then you've got Crimzo. Crimzo's okay. I think he's better than Rolf, his equivalent on the Vancouver Titans. Do I think he's great? No. I don't think Crimzo is great. And I think there's a lot of players that will outdo him. And so this is why I've rated Houston quite low. It might be a little harsh to put them below the likes of Paris, etc. But there are... Crimzo, he's been in the league before, whereas when you look at the likes of Paris and London, there's a lot of new talent that want to really improve themselves and really prove themselves that haven't had the chance to recently. So that could be a thing. But we're going to keep rattling through these quite quickly because otherwise this is going to be a really long video. So next up, Boston. Boston 18th. Ugh, they've got the opposite problem. They haven't got a main support. We haven't got a clue who their main support is, which is really weird. Myunbong is Myunbong. Myunbong is fantastic. Don't disagree with that. Standwood will be fine, I think. Off-tank Punk. Punk is Punk, I guess. Yeah, whatever. They've got Fusions. Well, Fusions is great. Do I see him starting over Stand 1? Knowing Boston, probably not. They've got a really good head coach in Laurie, though. So that's a really good boon for them. They brought up Soon. Soon is a great DPS player. Maybe not as good as he used to be, but still a great pickup. I'm 37 was great Korean Contenders winner. Color Hex. Color Hex. Yeah. Color Hex exists. I don't think Boston are going to do massively well. I think they'll be okay, and I don't think they'll be bottom. I think they are better than Vancouver. But Houston could go above Boston. It's very interchangeable, some of these bottom teams. But yeah, but there's nothing exciting about Boston for me. There just isn't. There'll just be a couple of consistent players and probably some trash players. That's just what Boston are, and it's what Boston always will be, unfortunately, until they make some big moves. I was hoping they were going to go all Korean with Laurie coming in from WGS Phoenix, but they didn't, and they let me down. So that's what happens. Moving on, we have Paris in 17th. So Paris, potential, heavy potential. I really like the DPS line of the Paris Eternal with Naga, Onigod, and Suna. I don't think Suna's going to see a lot of playtime, but Onigod and Naga was fantastic for Obey Alliance. Onigod didn't get to shine at the Dallas Fuel. Onigod is still a great hit scan player. Then they have the tank line. Elivo is great, but I tend to think Elivo works well with Lulshish. Lulshish can't be picked up because of his visa issues with American visas, so they picked up Dawn. I think Dawn's probably the weakest link on this team. Not gonna lie. I don't think Dawn will be a standout main tank for the Paris Eternal. And I think that he will let them down. Then they got Neptuno in the main support role. Neptuno comes in with an amazing amount of experience, which I think is going to be vital for this new Paris Eternal squad. Is he phenomenal? No. But I think his experience and leadership will be invaluable to Paris, though. Otherwise, I really think they would be a bottom tier team, like bottom. And then we have Khan on the flex support from OB Alliance. Again, decent pickup. Do I think he's going to have the impact that Naga is? Who is his equivalent from Obey Alliance? No. I think he just needs to be consistent, Khan. He needs to be consistent. And we're comparing him to some very good flex supports. Very good flex supports. So he's going to have to really prove himself in this. And this is why I'm saying, yes, I think the DPS line of the Paris Eternal is great, but when you look at the tank line and support line, I feel it's lacking. And it's to be expected considering the problems that Paris have had. And I think they've done a really fantastic job in this offseason to actually keep up and not completely get drowned out by the rest of the teams in the league. I was amazed they got Naga. I thought Naga would be in high demand, but that's a really great pickup for Paris. So, just above Paris, I have their European rivals, London. London, it was looking so good. British Hurricane being promoted, brought in Kellex, Ripper, Overwatch League experience. Kellex is a bit of a boom or bust, but I'm willing to back him. Morphing and Haddy, I think will be a great tank line. They've been great for British Hurricane. I think they'll be a really good tank line. Sparker and Hybrid. Sparker will be great when he comes of age in June. Hybrid is going to fill in that hitscan DPS role. Hybrid had a really great time at Obey Alliance and has got a really nasty Echo in his back pocket. Reminds me a bit of Shockwave, actually. So I think Hybrid will be great. He's the British representation for London. Then we have Blase. Blase's been doing well in tryouts, apparently. But you can't be a tryout, Andy. You have to do it in the matches. And so far, we haven't seen Blase really pop off unless it's been on a very specific hero against Boston Uprising. So, Blase is a big red flag for me on this London Spitfire side, alongside perhaps Kellogg's. And this is why... And the biggest question I have about this London side is they apparently outbid Vancouver for Blase. Why on earth did they not outbid Paris for Naga? That would have made so much more sense to me. And if we've been looking at a DPS line of Hybrid, Sparker and Naga, or, heaven forbid, Danad, who never got promoted from British Hurricane and ended up leaving, if it had been a Naga hybrid Sparker DPS line, I could have rated this London team more higher. More higher? Higher. But I can't. I just can't. It's too weak. I worry about Blase a heck of a lot. And especially going into the start of the season, if we don't see Echo nerfs soon, which I'm hoping we should do, Sparker won't be eligible. Who is their Echo player? Possibly hybrid. Does that mean we see Blase on hit scan? Oh no. Oh no, moving on. So, Atlanta Reign next. Atlanta Reign, they're keeping their heads above water with the signing of Pelican. They cleared out some of the deadwood, Fire being one of those players, Kodak being another one of those players. But, Eris, Master Hawk, Gator, Sharp, Pelican, and Edison. I still think it's a good DPS line, but I don't think the rest are going to keep up. I still think Atlanta are going to struggle down in the depths of around the 15th. I don't think Paris are going to be much above there, and plus there's no change to the coaching, and we all remember the saucy saga of the Bastion sim. Yes, it worked against Paris, but it didn't work against anyone else, did it? And I still question a lot of Atlanta Reign's coaching at times. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit of a rough one for Atlanta. They could even be lower, I'm not going to lie, but I don't see them going much higher unless they really, really surprise me. But, moving on, LA Valiant next. They just seem weaker to me than last season. They just seem weaker. Lastra and Rain is a great support line. Then you have Dreamer in the tank, in the main tank. Again, consistent main tank. Adam. Out of nowhere, instead of McGravy. Why? Why is this a thing? Is it customary to have an Aussie on the Valiant? Questions need to be asked. I hope Adam's good. If he proves us wrong, then that'll be great. Absolutely great for the Valiant. But I really don't understand dropping McGravy. Adam must have something about him. That's all I can say. Because it's just really, really odd. Agilities? Why? Agilities? Why? Just why? Don't understand that. However, KSP and Shaxx, if they get the right meta, they'll carry this Valiant side just like they did last season. So I still think they're going to do pretty okay. So now we're going to start stumbling across our first APAC teams. And this is where people are going to start probably thinking. So actually, by this, you can kind of guess NYXL are next. So I'm putting NYXL bottom of APAC. Oh yes, well it's a new NYXL roster, right? So it's very, very unproven. They have brought back Jonak, which is going to offer them experience and stability. Bianca is still fairly inexperienced despite playing at the end of last season. Then they bring in Yakpung on the main tank. Yakpung's boom or bust in my opinion, although he's had a good time at O2 Blast. Although, last time he was in the league with the Toronto, he didn't do all that well. Then we saw Friday coming in on the main support, and I think that's a really odd pick. I think there was a lot of options like Sanguinar that would have been better than Friday, and that's kind of what they went with from Mosaic Gaming, so yeah, that's kind of what it is. And then we look at the DPS line, Feather, Flora, Guangboon. I think they'll be great, but a great, great pickup in Ivy. Like, really great pickup in Ivy. Was not expecting them to get Ivy off of the Philadelphia Fusion. Never would have expected that. Off of the Philadelphia Fusion, yeah. So, I don't know why Philly didn't keep hold of Ivy. It really doesn't make any sense to me, but they didn't. And that is NYXL's game. And I think it's a really big game for NYXL. I'd be seriously worried about this roster if it wasn't for Ivy. But I don't think it's going to rescue them somehow. I don't think one or two players is going to get them out of this. I think this is a long-term project for NYXL. With the right coaching, it may do quite well. But I don't feel like I can back this NYXL roster right now, so that's why I put them so low. Next up, though, we will see the Guangzhou Charge. The reason the Guangzhou Charge have got it over the NYXL is because Kariv, Mandu, Rio, Krong. They still have a really, really stable backline and frontline. Krong and Rio are the tank line from last year for the Guangzhou Charge, and they will be great. I know Krong isn't, you know, he's not a Sigma one-trick, but he's much, much better on a Sigma than anything else. Sigma's just had nerfs, but Krong is still going to be stable. Mandu played for NYXL last season, not all that much, but I still think it could be a good pickup, and Kariv is already very reliable on the flex support, and one of the more underrated flex supports in the league in my opinion, so I think they will be fine there. Then we've got Choicer One, Mike Haley, and Eileen. Eileen is already good, Mike Haley has a great history, and so does Choicer One. So I think, although their DPS probably aren't as good as they were last season, I still think they're very consistent. So I don't think they're going to reach the peaks that they did last season, but I think they're going to be okay enough to keep just above the NYXL. But NYXL are going to struggle this season, I think. So above both of these teams, I've put Chengdu Hunters. So yeah, Chengdu Hunters have made a lot of changes. A lot of changes in this offseason, bringing in a load of new Chinese talent. And they've still got the old names like Li, Jinmu, Eming, Late Young, Yveltal. They've still got those really good names. But they've brought in 1987 from Team CC. They brought in Nisha. They brought in Gaga, Elsa. They got Kaneki, Jimmy. I like these new pickups from the Chengdu Hunters. I think it gives them an immense amount of depth, but I also think it's going to make them much, much better in metas that don't favour them. When we've seen Chengdu Hunters a lot, they've been in that whole thing of, well, they catch you off guard in their right meta, right, with a Meng on the ball, blah, 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 blah. But with Gaga coming in, I think that's going to be really good. They've also got Rui back in as their head coach, which I think is massive. Massive, massive, massive. I think Chengdu Hunters are a dark horse. I really think they could do well this season. I'm not prepared to put them above middle of the table-ish, but I really think this team could possibly be quite good. So keep an eye on the Chengdu Hunters, because I think there's a lot of potential in that team. Now, however, we are moving over to the teams that are still currently in North America. So next up we have Toronto Defiant. Toronto Defiant, they could be a bit higher than this, but it's going to take time to knit this roster together, I think. So I really like the support line of Anson J and Aztec. Aztec was phenomenal in Korean Contenders for WGS Phoenix, ripping apart Runaway actually. So he was really good. They got Sado as a main tank. Well, Sado kind of collapsed in the playoffs for Philadelphia Fusion at the end of last season, but I still think he's really consistent in the main season, and again, I think he will be okay. Beast is probably not going to get played, so we don't have to worry about him. Michelle on the off tank, again, a nice consistent off tank, not the groundbreaking like Furies of the world, but he's still going to be really consistent. Then they've got a DPS line of Logix, Neist, and Hisu. Now, I really like that. Neist is a really cool up-and-coming flex DPS. Hisu is great. I think Philly should have held on to him. I think we will talk about Philly in a minute because they're coming up very soon. And I really think that's a loss for Philly to let go of Hisu. I think that'll be Toronto's big gain. And then Logix is always there. He's always a little consistent DPS that, yeah, doesn't get the massive amount of playtime from time to time and can look bad because he's always been in bad teams, but I still think he's a really consistent DPS. But I'd imagine the consistent DPS line for Toronto will be Hisu and Neist. And therefore, I think it's got a lot of potential. However, the one thing that lets Toronto down is the fact they've got KDG as head coach. And he was with Philadelphia Fusion last year where they collapsed in the playoffs. So, yeah, there's a downside to it for Toronto, but I still think they're going to be much better than they have been for recent times. Anyway, next up we have the Washington Justice. Washington Justice have made some phenomenal changes in this offseason, as we expected, after their picking up of Decay during the middle of last season. They're keeping Decay with the Tuba and Jerry DPS line, picking up Jerry from the Boston Uprising. I think it's a great addition. I think they've got a really nice DPS line, actually. Jerry will be able to do much more at the Washington Justice than he was at Boston. Tuba really proved himself at the end of last season. Decay is just Decay. Let's be honest. Then they have possibly one of the best tank lines in the league. They have Mag and Fury. Fury is a phenomenal off-tank. Comes in, obviously, with a massive amount of experience. We all know Fury. Great Sigma. Great Diva. Great Hog. Great Zarya. Fury is Fury and one of the best off-tanks in this league. Mag is coming in from Runaway. One of the best main tanks in Korea. Mag, I was actually flabbergasted that Washington managed to get him. I thought he would go somewhere like NYXL. He didn't end up going there. He ended up at Washington. That is Washington's massive gain. Providing Mag doesn't bust, which I don't think he will, I think this is one of the best tank lines in the league. Problem is, then they bring in Rhea. I don't know why they brought in Rhea. I presume he's just a backup. I would hope he's just a backup. He shouldn't be squeezing out either. Well, he's an off-tank, so he shouldn't be squeezing out Mag, and he shouldn't be squeezing out Fury either. Mag and Fury, I really think, is the strong point of this team. And then we see the supports in Closer and Bebe. Closer didn't make it with London. Got out of that London, came to Dallas. Dallas did nothing. Dallas never really did anything. Yet. So, difficult to tell. Bebe was okay for Hangzhou last year, but nothing amazing. That's the problem with Bebe, in my opinion. So I don't think their supports live up to their DPS and their tanks, especially their tanks. And this is why I rate them quite a bit lower than I'd like to, because I think Washington could actually be quite a good team. Also, coaching, yeah, Hockery. That's it. So again, it remains to be seen. Again, Toronto or Washington are two teams that could really Surprise, if they wanted to. And also, they could also switch regions. They are entirely Korean teams. No, actually, Washington is just entirely Korean, but they both could switch regions if they wanted to. With the amount of Korean influence they have, we will remain to see what happens. Then we have, yes, Philadelphia Fusion. Little low for a lot of people, I'm sure. But Philly are weaker. I can't help it, but Philly are weaker. It just feels like it. Like, they still got a great support line. Funny Astro and Alarm, one of the best support lines in the league. Can't argue with that. But there are some great support lines coming up, like Answer J and Aztec, as I mentioned earlier. And then we've got Poco still on the off tank. They lost Fury. They've lost Fury, one of the best divas in the league. Yeah, you can argue Poco. Poco, I still don't think is as good as Fury. I'm sorry. I just don't. I won't ever think that. They bring in Mano to replace Sado. There's a whole issue with this. So then we have the DPS line. Carpe, as always. EQO, who was back up last season to Ivy. They lost Ivy, brought in Shockwave. Shockwave has a substantial amount of pop-off potential. I don't doubt that. I still think it's a downgrade though. And I think this DPS line is going to rely heavily on Carpe. Way too much. Like it did in 2019 and 2018. In 2018, it worked because it favoured them meta-wise. In 2019, it really didn't. Because we were in GOATS. And Carpe had to play Zarya. And that was not comfortable for him. At all. When you want to see Carpe play, you want to see him on the Tracer, the McCree, the Widow, the Ashe. That's what you want to see Carpe on. If you can't play that, you want other options, really. Don't you? Let's be honest. And what other options do Philly have? They do have a fantastic Echo player. And I've noticed this with a few teams, especially London as well with Hybrid. There's a few teams investing in making sure they have a really good Echo player. What a surprise. She's kind of a good hero, right? So I can understand that. It'll be interesting to see who they start off with, whether it'll be Carpe, Shockwave, or Carpe, EQO. It'll be one of those two, I would imagine. Then we come to the Mano issue. I feel like there is a very big clash of playstyles that is going to crop up in this season of the Overwatch League Philadelphia Fusion. And it's exactly what was happening at NYXL that season when you had Hotbird and Mano. Hotbird was a really aggressive off-tank. Mano was a really passive off-tank. Mano is a really passive off-tank. Poco has learned to be in a really aggressive team. Funny Astro is a really aggressive support. Alarm has been an aggressive support for all season. Mano is a passive off-tank. So there is a clash of playstyles, and I feel like it's going to be problematic, just like it was at NYXL last season. It is possible, however, that this gets weeded out in time, with obviously the new head coach 9K coming in from obviously Paris Eternal. So it's possible it gets worked out, but it's going to take time at least, and I think it's going to hurt Philly. I think it's really going to hurt Philly, especially in the early stages, and it may hurt them completely. So I just can't back this Philly roster right now. It's got a lot of raw power, but I'm not sure it's going to work. I'm not sure whether everyone's going to work together as well as they did last season. So this is why they're so low. Just above them, we are moving back to Philly are in APAC this year as well. So that's another thing that's going to kind of hinder them. They're going up against Shanghai, Hangzhou, Seoul, a lot of great teams. So yeah, it's going to be tough for Philly. Then, talking of APAC, we move over to Hangzhou Spark next, who are just above them. Hangzhou Spark fully filled out their roster. 12-man roster, right? There's a lot of talent. I think Hangzhou is a boom or bust team simply because of the way it's really split between China and Korea. And if I was to guess a starting lineup for this Hangzhou Spark squad, it would be MCD, Mika, Liji, Gujue, Shai, and then one of either Somin Su or Architect, depending on the meta and what heroes are favoured. I think Shai is definitely a long-term replacement for Godsby, and I think that's actually a really nice addition. Architect and Somin Su makes them incredibly versatile. If they want a dominant Zarya player, Somin Su's got a great Zarya as well. So then you've got 4 tanks, Gujue, Liji, Takoyaki, and Bernard. Bernard was fantastic for London last season. Takoyaki's been fantastic. Gujue's always great. Liji has been great in Chinese contenders. So yeah, there's not really too much to argue there. IDK is not the best main support, so that's why I think they're going to play Mika over them. And then I think MCD is the better flex support compared to Coldest. So I think that's what we're going to see, MCD Mika. It will very heavily depend on how this team integrates with each other. If they integrate really well and synergize really well, I think they could be higher than where I've put them. I think they could be a really good team. Or it could go monumentally wrong and they just sink. it can go one or two ways with Hangzhou this season, I think. And that's why I've kind of put them just above the middle of the pack. Because they've got a lot of quality, though. They do have a lot of quality. Just above them, I've given the benefit of the doubt to the Florida Mayhem. Now, I think Mayhem are a good team. Their support line incredibly better than last season. Like, my goodness me. Finally, they got rid of Chris. Brought in Slime. Slime is a great main support to go alongside Gangnam Jin. I've always rated Gangnam Jin very highly as a flex support. So flex support, main support look great. The support line looks great for Florida. One of the best, actually, in my opinion. Then we have Gargle, nice consistent off tank. OG. Now, OG, he doesn't have a stellar history with teams, does he? He's always, however, been on mixed rosters. So maybe a full Korean roster will unlock the potential OG has. He definitely has potential. Hopefully he doesn't boom like he has done in previous seasons at the Gladiators in Dallas. If he doesn't, then I think it will be a really good tank line for the Florida Mayhem. But we remain to see. And also they've managed to keep hold of Yaki and BQB. BQB did fantastic last season, so did Yaki, and they've added Checkmate. Checkmate has been very good in Korea as well. So I think they've got a really nicely adequate DPS line. I say adequate, actually. It's nicely stacked, actually. It's a good DPS line, Florida. So they've got good supports. They've got good DPS. They've got a really nice, consistent off-tank. They just need to make sure OG stays in line. And if they do, I think Florida will actually be fairly good. I think they'll actually be pretty darn good. Again, a little dark horse. A little dark horse, that Florida Mayhem team. So, now we are in our top 5, however. And in 5th place, we have our runners-up from last season, Seoul Dynasty. So, it means that Seoul are not top of APAC. It means that Shanghai are top of APAC. And I really don't know. It's so difficult. I know people are going to mold over this. I really do. I really like the Seoul DPS. Going back to the inaugural season, you told someone that a team is coming with Sabi and Profit as their DPS line, and they would have run to the hills. They really would, because that would have been the best DPS line in the league by far. Then you add Fitz to that, and that's really great. However, times have changed. Profit is still fantastic. Fitz is good. And Sabi is still good. And I think Sabi will offer a very much and highly needed captaincy and experience boost lost when they lost Toby at the end of last season. So I think that's very big for Seoul Dynasty. Their tank line, Jester, Marvel, 2U. They had Jester and Marvel for a long time and no off tank, and I was really worried, but then they promoted 2U after his great performance at Gen.G in the Gauntlet. I think that is massive. Gen.G came second in the Gauntlet to Team CC, some of which players now play for Chengdu Hunters, just saying. So I think that's actually a really good addition. 2U is really darn needed for Seoul Dynasty. So Jester's going to be great. Marvel is really consistent. 2U is a great off tank. I think they're fine in that respect. Then we have Creative and Animo as a support line. Creative is great, especially on the Ana. His Zen may be a little bit weaker, but it's okay. No more Badoshin anymore, so he's definitely going to be playing all of those flex support roles. And then we have Animo. Animo will be consistent. He will not be as good as Toby. But I think he will be consistent enough to get results for Seoul Dynasty. Will he be consistent enough to outdo Shanghai? I don't know. Seoul could be top of APAC next year. I really do. Well, this year, I should say. I really think Seoul could be top of APAC, but at the moment I'm just still hesitant because this is the Seoul Dynasty. They have Gesture Profit, and there's one thing that was a problem with the Seoul Dynasty last season. What was it? Regular season performance. They used to do really well in the tournaments, but in the regular season they really didn't get results. And that's what cost them being basically dominant in APAC. And I wonder whether that might happen again. And this is why I don't trust the Seoul Dynasty squad, so that's why I've rated them 5th instead of like 3rd or 2nd. Anyway, next up is Shanghai. The reason Shanghai are 4th is because Shanghai are arguably worse than they were last season. They've lost Fearless. That is a massive loss. Fearless was one of the best, or if not the best, main tank in the league last season. Argument for Smurf. That's literally it. Fearless has gone to Dallas. So now they bring in Fate. Fate is not Fearless level. Hence, obviously Florida have a new main tank. Fate is not Fearless level, but I still think he will be consistent enough for Shanghai. However, there are other issues with this team in my opinion. I still think the DPS for Shanghai are great. So you got Lip, Flatter, Erster and DM. fantastic long range hit scan with DM. Lip has been great. Fletter has been great. MVP last year. And then Erster, I think, is a great addition to make sure that they've got a lot of strength and depth. Void is going to be a great off-tank, as per usual. One of the best off-tanks last season, if not the best. Liege gone, main support. Can be a little bit up and down at times. Can be a little bit iffy. But most of the time he's consistent. But it's, yeah. He can be up and down. Then we have Izayaki and Molly. I really hope they play Molly. I really think Izayaki will be a weak link to this team if they play him. I really, really do. So I hope they start with Molly. Because Izayaki, he did a lot of questionable stuff last season. I remember some questionable trances, stuff like that. And I was kind of down that they didn't keep Luffy over Izayaki. So Izayaki's kind of boom or bust. So yeah. We will see what happens with Shanghai, but that support line can be a little bit iffy at times, that's all I'll say. So our top 3 then, all from NA. I'm sure you Americans will be very, very pleased to know. So number 3 is Los Angeles Gladiators. I think there's a lot of raw talent on the Gladiators. You've got Birdwing, Kester, Mirror, Muse, Space, Moth, Shu and Skewed. Skewed is definitely going to be a backup. Moth and Shu is going to be the support line, which I think is a really good support line. Space and Muse. Muse will be a good main tank, I'm hoping. He should be a good main tank. I don't see why he wouldn't be. Space is already a great off tank. We already know that. Mirror, Kevster, Birdwing. So Birdwing will be great, hopefully. He should be. Again, sometimes there can be some issues. Kevster's great, Mirror's great. So I don't think there's any glaring weaknesses unless they start randomly playing Skewed for no reason. And I don't think they'll do that with Shu and Moth. It would be really odd if they did. So I don't think there's any glaring weaknesses in the Gladiators. And this is why I think they'll be a consistently good side in 2021. If it really, really clicks, they could do very, very well. But I think it's going to take time to really settle it. So that's why they're not higher. But they can't go much higher. So I think it's going to be a good season if you're a Purple fan of LA. Second, we have Dallas Fuel. You Dallas fans will like it. A lot of people won't like it. But I keep hearing people saying Dallas are going to explode. They always do. The thing is, this is new Dallas. Dallas is gone. Welcome to Dallas 2.0 with Paris and Eternal added to it. This is an insanely stacked squad. I cannot ignore that fact. Like, let me just read off the Dallas Fuel. Like, holy mother of goodness me, XZ, Sparkle, Doha, Fearless, Hanbin, Jexer, Filder, Rappel. Why on earth would you doubt that squad? That is an incredibly stacked squad. Jexer was a carry at times for Houston Outlaws last season. I'm not expecting Rappel to play, I'm expecting Fielder to play. Fielder was fantastic, even on high ping for the Paris Eternal. So Jexer Fielder is great. Hanbin, really consistent off-tank. Fearless, one of the best main tanks in the league of current times. Really, really unexpected that they got him from Shanghai Dragons, but still a really fantastic pickup. Fantastic tank line. And then you have Doha, Sparkle, and Xe. Xe is a fantastic hit scan. Sparkle is great in a Genji Doomfist sort of meta. And then you've got Doha for the likes of Sombra and Mei. I think this team is versatile. I think it is really good. I really like this Dallas side. And I think this Dallas side has a lot of potential. And they have really good staff. They have Rush, they have Young, they have Aid. I think there is a lot of potential in Dallas. If they cannot win the league with this roster, I don't think they ever will. Unless they buy the Shock, including Krusty. Like, I really don't. Talking of the Shock, yeah, they're top. Come at me. Like, does anyone doubt the Shock are going to be top? Does anyone doubt Shock are favourites? Yes, they've lost Moth. They replaced him with FD God. FD God is still a great main support, so they have Violet, Twilight, and FD God. Holy boy, it's still there. They kept Super, so they still have Smurf, Super, and Choi Hyobin. Holy boy, they still have one of the best tank lines in the league. And then, a little bit of a shift around in the DPS. Striker's still there. That's great. Nero. No more Rascal. Still okay though. Nero's going to be fine. I think Nero's going to be fine. He's going to be a great American flex DPS. I think he'll actually be really, really good. Tayo's not going to play. So, yeah, Tayo, he's not going to play. I really don't think he's going to play, and this is really specifically a Genji meta. And then, Glister. They've lost Arms. Glister, I think Glister will be fantastic. I have a feeling this is going to be, like, it may have been a breakthrough season at London for Glister last season, where he did really well on a poor roster. Imagine what he's going to do on a roster like this, with the power of Krusty behind him on the coaching. I think Glister could be an MVP candidate. I am not even lying. I think this could be a massive season for Glister. Providing the meta is kind, obviously. So, Shock don't look weaker in my opinion. Some people may think they are, but the Shock don't look weaker in my opinion. So, this has been a long video, but those are my power rankings right now. There's going to be a lot of controversy around this, I'm sure. There's going to be a lot of heated discussion around it, but that's what I think right now. And I will continue updating it hopefully in the future, and we will do separate APAC and NA ones soon maybe. If you want to see that, obviously leave a comment, like, whatever you want to do. On this video, hit bell, subscribe thing. List is number 1, Shock, 2, Fuel, 3rd, Gladiators, 4th, Shanghai Dragons, 5th, Seoul Dynasty, 6th, Florida Mayhem, 7th, Hangzhou Spark, 8th, Philadelphia Fusion, 9th, Washington Justice, 10th, Toronto Defiant, 11th, Chengdu Hunters, 12th, Guangzhou Charge, 13th, New York Excelsior, 14th, LA Valiant, 15th, Atlanta Reign, 16th, London, 17th, Paris, 18th, Boston, 19th, Houston, and at the bottom league, 20th, Vancouver. So that is what I think right now. Let me know in the comments what you think. I will be back very soon for another video, but for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then!